Welcome back everyone. In today's video I'm pushing on with the Wheel of Time series, and today we are looking at the 5th book, The Fires of Heaven. When I first read this book I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but this time, listening to it on audiobook, I think it might actually be my favourite so far. I know I keep saying that, but there will become a time in that slog when I'm like, this is the worst book, we'll have like a reversal. Let's talk about why I think this is such a good book in the series. Part 1. Summary. In The Fires of Heaven, Rand returns from the Waste with the Aiel, and continues to attempt to consolidate his power in the mainlands. He is pulled deeper into the political games of various nations, with lords and ladies planning his downfall on every side, the rebellion of the Shido Aiel, and the presence of the Forsaken in Andor and Carrion. Along the way, Rand continues to learn to use the power under Asmodean's tuition. Egwene continues her studies under the Wise Ones, and Mat finds himself unable to free himself from his destiny as a Tarvaran. Meanwhile, following their escape from the White Tower, Suon Sanche, Min, Lian, and Logain join a sect of the rebel Aes Sedai in Saladar, where Suon tries to consolidate a position of power, having been stilled in the previous volume. Nynaeve and Elaine, along with Tom Merrilin and Julian Sandar, also travel towards Saladar, hidden in a travelling circus. Along the way, they encounter White Cloaks, a former acquaintance now claiming to be the prophet of the Dragon Reborn, and Moghedien, who continues to stalk Nynaeve in the World of Dreams to avenge herself after her defeat at the end of the Shadow Rising. Part 2. Goodbye Childhood. So one thing that I'm noticing more and more with my reread of the series is how you can sort of split it up into phases. The first 3 books are very much about the children coming to terms with the adventure and the world around them. As we move from the 4th book and now the 5th, and I imagine from memory going on to the 6th, what we have is a shift from children being generally passive and controlled by people above them, to the children maturing and taking on the roles of responsibility. And I think in this book, especially with what occurs at the end of the book, symbolically you have the moment where suddenly this becomes Rand's story, where he is the driving force, and also the other characters like Nynaeve, Egwene, Mat, and not Perrin because he's not in this book. He kind of already reached this point at the end of the last book, where they are now the people in charge going forward. We can see this happening right at the beginning of the book, when Moiraine is continuing to try to influence Rand, and he just says, nope, I've had enough. You either swear an oath of obedience to me, or you're out, you're gone. And she does. She suddenly becomes incredibly subservient to Rand, because she recognises that she needs to bend in order to let her have the influence that she wants. The adults in this book are starting to realise that it's the younger generation that need to take charge, and they need to accept their place as advisors because it's not their fight. At least they're not the front of the fight, of course. So that's what I think the main theme with this book is. It's the continuation of that trajectory, and especially for Rand, the consolidation of his place in a position of power. On the flip side of that, though, we do have Nynaeve's story in this book, which is still following the same trajectory, and by the end of the book she does have that consolidation, but her storyline in this book is fantastic. Nynaeve is interesting because in the earlier series she was sort of in that adult category. Not quite at the level of Moiraine, say, in terms of influence, but she is older than Rand and Mat and Egwene and Perrin, so she did sort of have a more adult position, and in this book she just finds her authority and power being challenged by everyone. She has a scene where she gets put down by Egwene, by the Wise Ones, and a big one with Moghedien, and it's great. That's probably my favourite bit of the story as a whole, is Nynaeve's progression and her maturity in this book, and it's very satisfying at the end when she's able to overcome some of the problems that she's been having in this book. Also, what's nice with Nynaeve in this book is that it's the first book where she kind of moves away from the angry, somewhat annoying character she has been in previous books, where she just tends to get angry a lot, and that's all there is, just her snapping and tugging her braid. And that's still there, but in this book she actually starts crying, she gets upset and frustrated, and it's just adds such richness to her character. I really think that in this book, it really is Nynaeve's book in terms of character development, which surprised me because when I first read it, I wasn't all that grabbed by that storyline in the circus, because it seemed didn't seem that important. But actually, it's not about the events that are happening with that storyline, it's about Nynaeve and her personal struggles that she's having, and it's executed so well, and it's one of the best parts of this book for me. Also, we have Mat in this book, who finally starts to do things He sort of did little bits in the last couple of books. We did get point of view chapters, but still he's not progressing all that much. He's still, in terms of maturity, he's still at the bottom of the barrel with that. But in this book, he is forced to act. He's forced to take a leadership role, kind of like Perrin in the previous book, although he doesn't take to it as well as Perrin did. And it's great to see Matt really developing into his position as well in this book. Him and Nynaeve, I would say, are the highlights of this one. Part 3. Increased complexity. So in this book we have the continuation of the broad world building, like we had in The Shadow Rising. But in The Shadow Rising the world building was focused more on culture and place, whereas this time we're focusing more on politics and characters. Not only do we get the introduction of political storylines as Rand returns to the mainlands and has to deal with the various lords and ladies, as well as also the Shido and the conflicts with the Aiel, we also get the introduction of more Forsaken taking a more prominent role and adopting positions of power in their plans. And we also start to follow different secondary characters. Morgase starts getting more time, more chapter time, and so does Suon. So there's just a lot more in terms of characters and political machinations going on in this book, which I think might be the reason why when I first read it I didn't enjoy it that much, because there was just so much going on and so much content that it was kind of hard to follow everything. Whereas now, having read the book, knowing all the characters, and not having to kind of think about what's going on, I can focus more on just how amazing it is that he manages to bring all this stuff in, and how so many things early on are being foreshadowed for later. It's really good, this book, for foreshadowing, for expanding the universe. If there was one negative about this expansion still though for me, I would say that Jordan's political stuff is less good than, say, something like A Song of Ice and Fire. The politics of Game of Thrones, the politics of the Wheel of Time it's fine, but it's not overly complex. The lords and ladies pretty much just fall into general categories of this one's a twat, but this one's alright, and that's kind of it. I am exaggerating a little bit, but I don't really care all that much for the political intrigue stuff, because it's not all that complex or interesting. It's not really where the Wheel of Time, gets it. So to compare it to The Shadow Rising, which is more focused on culture and world building, that ekes out a little bit better than The Fires of Heaven, because The Fires of Heaven is more focused on politics, which I think is a weak point of the series. That being said, I do think that this book has a fantastic climax. In fact, there are about 3 or 4 climactic events at the end of this book, which I won't spoil any of them, but they're all standout moments of the series, and I also like how Jordan is able to weave the various storylines that are going on throughout the book together in those last moments. The way that he does that is just, it's really good. In fact, I would say it's probably the best, most complex web of various storylines coming together and then converging in the series so far. In the previous book, we didn't really have a convergence, we just had various threads ending on their own. In the previous books to that, we just had very coincidental characters converging with each other, which was annoying because it was 3 books in a row. Whereas in this book, they all come together, it makes sense how they do it. It's really good. I really enjoyed the end of this book. And I think it might be why it ekes out as better overall than The Shadow Rising, even if I do have some problems with the politics. And also with the characters, which we'll get onto in a sec. Part 4. Some missteps. Okay, so there are 2 negatives that I see with this book. First of all, I don't like that Perrin is absent in this book. Perrin is my favourite character, at least in the early books of the series. And I was watching reviews of The Wheel of Time by Murphy Napier, I hope I'm saying her name properly, and she mentioned that also Perrin was one of her favourite characters, and she mentions later on that she thinks that Jordan kind of forgot about Perrin and stopped caring about his storyline because of where it goes in future books. And having heard her say that and then gone back and realised that he's not in a book, I sometimes wonder if that's the reason why Perrin kind of goes south when he returns in the next book. Because he wasn't present for a whole book, Jordan maybe just didn't really know what to do with him and then brought him back, and yeah. So I do wonder if his absence is kind of the first signifier of something going wrong with the series, because he doesn't know what to do with the character. In fact, part of me wonders if it might have just been better to have killed Perrin off in the 4th book, at the end, in the battle. It would have been, it would have raised the stakes a little bit, and it would have been quite a significant death. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. But yeah, I do think that Perrin's absence, it doesn't bode well for the future, so that's a niggle that I have. The second issue that I have in this book is Egwene's character development. Now, I'm not an Egwene hater. In fact, in the first book, I didn't really notice anything wrong with her character, and I really enjoy where she goes in the later books. But the way that she behaves in this book really threw me as just like, what is this character? So she, in the World of Dreams, she is with Nynaeve, and to put Nynaeve in her place, because Nynaeve is, doing her angry, bossy thing, Egwene conjures up in the World of Dreams some men to sexually assault Nynaeve, and she lets them go on for quite a bit. Nothing extreme, but, Nynaeve is clearly terrified, and it just seems like a very odd thing for anyone to do. It also doesn't feel consistent with Egwene's character, and I just thought that was a really weird scene. And also, Egwene does seem in this book to be very combative with everyone. She seems to just... Her first impulse with any character is just to get pissy with them. And her character in this book, it was just weird to me. So I didn't like that very much at all. It is a minor thing, and I don't think... I do remember really liking Egwene's storyline in future books, so I don't know how much this is going to change my opinion of her overall. But yeah, that was something that bugged me, was those two things. Absence of Perrin, and what the hell is going on with Egwene's character in this one. Part 5, Conclusion. So overall, this is just a great entry in the series, and I think it might be, if memory serves, I think this is probably the peak of the series. A lot of people do say that Lord of Chaos is a great book, and again, I didn't find that when I read it myself, but again, like with Fires of Heaven, I have this problem, so maybe I will really enjoy that book. But I do think that the Fires of Heaven is a peak, better than The Shadow Rising in terms of its themes, the way everything comes together, this like 10 climaxes at the end, all of various things that happen, really great, really, you just want to read it. So, great entry in the series, really enjoying rereading this, and very interested to see how I go in the future, because we're kind of approaching slog time now, so it'll be interesting to see if my views on that are going to change. Okay, that's it for today's video. If you enjoy watching my videos, please consider subscribing to the channel for updates for new videos. Let me know in the comments what you think about The Wheel of Time, what you think about this book. I would like to know, especially if you, what are your thoughts on the Perrin question? Do you think it was a mistake to leave him out in this one? And also, what do you think of Egwene and her characterization? Because that really did throw me in this book. I thought it was really weird. So yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on those things, and anything else you'd like to talk about. But that is it for today's video though, so take care everyone. I'll see you all in the next video.